This Rangers bullpen has become an enormous problem. The Rangers lose their 7th straight game. What the heck has to change for this team to end this horrendous skid? We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Friday, August 25th. Your Rangers are 72-55, still alone atop the AL West with a 1-game lead now over those stupid, stinking Houston Astros and also the Seattle Mariners, who are now tied for second place in the AL West. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best thing you can do to help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Unless you're an Astros fan just in there to be rude, then you don't comment anything. Just go away. You don't comment. Comment fellow Rangers fans who are sad and commiserating about the sadness of this team. Before we get into the sad, miserable, just godforsaken 7th loss in a row, this episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Now, once again, for the 4th episode out of 5 this week, it was nearly 5, but I tried to bring a little bit of sunshine into yesterday's show because the Rangers didn't lose the day before, and that was a nice change of pace for the last, 7 games where the Rangers have lost every single game, and it felt like as everything has gone wrong, but everything just keeps going wrong. It doesn't matter what this team does well in a game the last week and a half, they will find some other way to blow a game. The offense has a great game and explodes, and they destroy an opposing starting pitcher. Well, that's the day that the starting pitching of the Texas Rangers is going to implode, and also the bullpen is going to implode as well. Starting pitching does great. Well, that's the day that the offense is going to show up absolutely bone dry, and the relief pitching is going to give up runs in the 1-0 ninth inning game against Arizona. It just does not matter what is going right. It's not like literally everything has been terrible for every single one of these games. It's not like the Rangers are getting blown out every single time, and I think that almost makes it more frustrating, is that they're so close in all of these games, in so many one-run games. This at least wasn't a one-run loss, it was a 2-run loss, but still was a game. It was a one-run game until the Rangers gave up a 2-run homer and just blew this game wide open in the bottom of the 8th inning because, of course, Will Smith, who was the most reliable reliever in this bullpen, and Josh Sborz, who was incredibly reliable for about a month and a half before he had bicep tendonitis, and then just has not been the same since he's come back. Will Smith has been absolutely cooked in the month of August. And, well, Will Smith came in a pretty tight jam with runners on first and second with no outs, and he first pitch gets a double play, and you think, okay, are things starting to go right for the Rangers? It's still a 1-run lead at that point. The Rangers still had the lead, and then no, of course not. The Rangers are going to get a pinch hit 2-run homer from the backup catcher to come in and just ruin everything because, of course, why not? Why wouldn't the Rangers have that happen to them? It's just everything is so incredibly frustrating, and I think I know it's probably the right move for Bochy to keep his head on level, and most of these players kind of keep their heads on level. They've been around the big leagues for a while, but at some point you kind of want Bochy to start screaming and throwing things. I know that's not who he is, and for the most part, this Rangers leadership that's not who they are. Marcus Semien isn't going to scream in somebody's face. Corey Seager is not going to scream in somebody's face. They're just going to go out there and try and be better. And those guys were great in this one. Marcus Semien had a homer to lead off the game. Corey Seager had his 24th home run of the season. Semien's was his 20th home run of the season. And Luis Taveras looks like he's breaking out of his slump. He had his second home run, I believe, since the All-Star break, and it was an opposite field home run. I've been saying for the last week or so that Leote's at-bats have been looking a whole lot better. And they have, and he had a couple of really pretty good games in Arizona with great defensive plays and that that brilliant base running move of having to force a throw on first base after working a walk in a game where he also had a double. He's got extra base hits in 3 straight games, where on that wild throw, that wild pickoff attempt, he went from first to third base with just 1 out, and the Rangers couldn't score him, and the Rangers ended up losing, and yada yada yada. That's just kind of the way things go. But I mean, he was coming up big, and even Travis Jankowski had a 2 RBI day. The only hit the Rangers had with runners in scoring position on the day. There were only 2 hits with runners in scoring position by both teams combined. They were combined 2 for 13. One of them was the 2 RBI single from Travis Jankowski, who one of his 3 hits on the night was a bunt base hit. That's kind of what got him going in this one. And the other hit with a runner in scoring position was the 2-run bomb that Will Smith gave up with a runner on third base, because of course it was, and that was the go-ahead home run by the Twins. But it just does not matter what this team is doing well at this point. It is just, I don't even know what to say at this point. Like, it's just so incredibly frustrating, and it feels like a common theme of this team has been some struggles with starting pitching at times not being able to go deep into games. With Andrew Heaney, this is my biggest pet peeve about Heaney. He is a fine, serviceable 5th starter. Like that's what he is, and I get really frustrated with him because he works so many walks, and he can only throw about 80 pitches before he stops being as effective, and he also gives up massive taters. But him not being able to go deep into games when this bullpen is so unreliable at this point, it kind of starts to spiral and starts to accumulate more than it just being an Andrew Heaney issue. And that's kind of why I leaned more towards Martin Perez over Andrew Heaney. Now, I know that Martin Perez wasn't great this year, but he had a lot of outings where he went deep into games, and most of the games he would get you 5-6 innings almost every single time out. And that is why I really liked Martin Perez, because this offense, for the most part, could score. Has, for most of the season, has been able to score very well, and the bullpen has been kind of untrustworthy except in low leverage situations. And if your starter's at least getting you 6-7 innings, then that is less of the bullpen that you have to use, and you don't have to have as deep of a bullpen, which the Rangers just don't have a deep bullpen right now. I mean, I'm going to go through some of the other potential bullpen options and some actual kind of positive news on the injury notes, and of course later on we're going to talk about our prospect of the week. But first, let's hear this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head to Sleeper, the #1 sports app where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. Do you think that Corey Seager is going to hit another home run, or do you think that the Rangers are going to get absolutely cooked and no matter who is thrown out there as a starting pitcher? Well, you can go make some picks on the Twins to go do some damage, or the Twins starting pitching to do some damage against the Rangers. If you do the Sleeper, you can swing for the fences for up to 100 times your payouts. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stat categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you could win big. If you're betting on the Twins just hitting a whole bunch of home runs against the Rangers yet again tomorrow, well, I mean, they gave up 5 in this one, so why not 6 tomorrow? If you're feeling lucky, then head to Sleeper, the #1 sports app. Like I just said, use promo code LOCKDOWN. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Monday's show, we're talking with Brandon of Locked On Twins about this weekend series. The Rangers take on the Twins this weekend. You can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, the Rangers did get a little bit more good news on the injury front, including about Jonah Heim, who he took some, quote, dry swings as a righty and had no issue, according to Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News. He also noted that the Rangers are saying it's his timing that's off, not a physical issue, and they are not as of yet concerned. He did have his first hard hit ball since coming off the IL, was 101 miles an hour off the bat, and of course, because that's the Rangers' luck, it was hit right at the first baseman and turned into a double play, because of course it was. Why would it not be? But the Rangers also got some positive news on Nathan Eovaldi, who threw another bullpen today. I believe that's 5 times that he has thrown in the last week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And it seems like he could be coming back without a rehab start. And it seems like he's going to be on a pretty limited pitch count whenever he does come back, somewhere around the 40 to 45-ish pitch range if he does not throw a rehab start, which there have been no definitive set days for when he's actually going to come back, but the consensus murmurings that I'm hearing is about September 1st. That would move Andrew Heaney to a kind of piggyback starter role. And I think that's probably best for him since he is not going deep into games. Just kind of have him piggyback off of Eovaldi's start for now, and then once Eovaldi gets back up to the full 100-ish pitch limit, then you throw Andrew Heaney back there in the bullpen. Maybe he comes out as a one-inning reliever and starts to be a little trustworthy, because the rest of this pen is just not trustworthy really at all at this moment. In terms of my Rangers reliever trust rankings, here's where I have in the tier of trustworthy in even some scenarios. I have Jose Leclerc. Jose Leclerc had a great outing in this one. 1 inning, 2 strikeouts, 0 base runners, and he looked fantastic. He was getting lots of swings and misses. I mean, half the swings and misses I believe that he had, or half the swings were swings and misses. He had 6 called strikes plus whiffs. 4 whiffs on 7 swings. They did not make contact at all with his slider or his changeup. He also got a swing and a miss on the 4-seamer. And the only pitch that he didn't get a whiff on was the cutter, which he got 2 swings, and both of those were, one of those was fouled off. One of those was an out, a ball in play. So, I mean, Jose Leclerc has quietly been pretty good as of late, and I know he's still nervy to throw out there because his at-bats always take a long time, because he throws a lot of pitches, because he's not really in the zone so much. But when he is on and effective, the break on his stuff is incredibly good. The spin rate on his fastball and the velocity of it is really, really good. And he's got potential to be a back-end reliever. There's a reason why he closed out some games for a year and a half, 2-ish years for the Rangers, and had some really good seasons and earned himself the contract that he did. Now, he has been really erratic at moments, and I don't know that I necessarily want him to be the Rangers closer down the stretch, because that's going to give me so much anxiety that I'm already going to have, because this AOS chase is just such a hot mess. But I mean, with bullpens, you just got to kind of ride the hot hand. In terms of the other tiers in my bullpen trust tree, there is everyone else in the no, just straight up no category. I mean, look at literally everybody else in this pen, and I don't know that I trust anybody. Aroldis Chapman has blown half the save opportunities that he's had. I mean, there is not a whole lot else that's going right for the Rangers in the bullpen. Josh Sborz didn't get a single out in this one. I mean, even Chris Stratton, who'd been mostly trustworthy, gave an absolute tater in this one. And Brock Burke has definitely shown some flaws as well. Grant Anderson is, well, I feel like he's kind of fluky, honestly. But you look at this pen and the amount of things that they can change, and the guys who they can even send down. Here's the relievers who the Rangers can send down to the minor leagues without just straight up cutting them. There's Grant Anderson, there's Brock Burke, and that's it. That's all they can do. And I don't think they're going to send down Brock Burke, and Grant Anderson hasn't been the Rangers' biggest problem. Granted, he's not pitching in the highest leverage situations to where he could become the Rangers' biggest problem. But if the Rangers want to make some changes in their bullpen, I mean, they're going to have to send one of those 2 guys down, or they're just going to have to straight up cut one of the other relievers. I mean, I know Will Smith is cooked in this month, but are the Rangers really willing to just cut bait on him and not think that he's going to have another hot streak? I mean, relievers are just so fickle, and it's the worst thing in the world to just have to sit there and know that this bullpen is in a rough way and not be able to do anything about it. It's just so incredibly frustrating when it's so predictable, seeing this team go in with a 1-run lead late into games and think, oh, it doesn't really matter who's coming out of the pen right now because they're going to get cooked, because that's the way things are going for this team right now. I mean, what are you going to start throwing Martin Perez in high leverage situations? You're going to start throwing, I don't even know. I don't really even know what the options are. I mean, there are a few guys that are possible the Rangers could try it out there. I mean, here's some guys in the minor leagues who it might be time to take an option on them. I mean, Danny Duffy has done okay in Frisco. I mean, he came up to AAA for a little bit and he got kind of rocked. The Rangers signed him to a minor league deal to let him kind of rehab throughout the season. The thought was maybe by the end of the season, Danny Duffy is kind of looking more like his Danny Duffy self, which is a guy who could maybe help you in the pen, a lefty arm that might be reliable if the Rangers want to just cut bait on Will Smith, which I don't know what they do at this point. Maybe that's an option. Antoine Kelly is a guy who has been phenomenal. Since July, he's got 18 and 2/3 innings, 22 strikeouts, just 2 walks, and only 1 earned run. I don't know why in the heck he's still in Double-A Frisco. I really don't understand. He's not on the 40-man roster, so there would have to be some kind of change there. The guys who are potential options to cut bait on, or I think Yuri Rodriguez would be the first one to go. Maybe Glenn Otto, but maybe Glenn Otto's an option to bring him back up. I thought that if you threw him in a multi-inning pen role as opposed to stretching him out as a starter, which I don't know why in the heck the Rangers are doing that, as opposed to just trying to make him a late inning, gear it up, throw in it 1 inning, have your fastball play up into the upper 90s like it has at points in his minor league career. And if they threw him to just go all out for 1 inning and have a fastball, even if it's not the best fastball, if the velocity is up in the mid-90s, and then you throw that breaking pitch that he's got, that's the makings of a nasty reliever. But I don't know that I trust that. Maybe you just put Owen White in the pen and hope that he starts to find his velocity, which I don't think they do. I really don't think they should do. I mean, I don't really want to see Owen White back up in the majors at this point because I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact. I mean, even in September when the rosters expand, I don't really know what this team's going to do. Coming up, we're going to look at a few more options in the Rangers' pen. A couple of interesting things that a former Ranger had to say disparagingly about the Angels and our prospect of the week. But first, let's word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Raiders for making Locked On Ranger first listen every single day. Like I said on Monday's show, I'll be talking with Brandon of Locked On Twins. Maybe the Rangers by then will have broken out of this losing streak, or maybe they'll be at 10 straight games that I will have turned into the Joker. The Rangers take on the Twins this weekend. You can catch every pitch for the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, there are a few other options the Rangers have in their bullpen down on the minor leagues. There is Zach Kent, who has been okay in his last few outings. He's been mostly a starter, or he has been starting for the last 3 outings in AAA. He has gone 3 innings, and 2 1/3 innings. It has been about a week since he has last pitched. Maybe he's pitching tonight and he hasn't, the baseball reference page has not been updated. But his last outing wasn't really great. Honestly, was not great. 2 1/3 innings, 3 walks, 0 hits, but did have 2 runs, both of which were earned, had 3 strikeouts. He has got, 8 strikeouts in 8 1/3 innings in his last 3 outings for AAA, which has been his only ones since that first outing when he got injured, unfortunately. Otherwise, I think he would have been in the Major League pen. He is on the 40-man roster, so there wouldn't have to be any kind of maneuvering. I don't think they're going to call him up just yet after that really rough outing where he got rocked around a little bit by the Sugarland Space Cowboys, which unfortunately are the Astros affiliate, which is making that extra annoying. There's also a couple other guys that are still on the 40-man in Jonathan Hernandez, who I think I might say that name and you might absolutely cringe and think, no, absolutely not. I just saw what he did when he was with the Rangers last. But in the month of August, he has been much better in AAA, a 0.79 ERA. And that 0.79 ERA comes in 7 games, 11 1/3 innings. Does have 4 walks in that span, but also has 14 strikeouts. In the month before, in July, he had 6 innings where he had 8 strikeouts, but 7 walks there. So the walks are still a problem. The strikeouts are still a solution to that problem. But if you are wary of doing that, I understand. His stuff is a little bit better than Grant Anderson, but Anderson hasn't had the just insane walk issues that we've seen from Jonathan Hernandez this year. And then, outside of that, it's not really a whole lot. Maybe you want to go with Mark Church, who has had a decent month of August. In the month of August, he has got a 0 ERA in 4 games, 7 innings, 4 walks though, but 9 strikeouts. He has had a lot of walk issues. He's got the nastiest slider in the Rangers system at this moment, but I don't think that this is necessarily the time for him to come up, because if AAA hitters are getting this many walks off him, I think the big league hitters are going to get even more. But it's just such a dire situation for the Rangers at the moment. I mean, maybe Alex Spees comes back up for a little bit of a cameo. I mean, it is just such a rough way, and it's so frustrating because the Rangers could see this as their biggest problem coming out of spring training, going into the deadline. I mean, it was such a glaring issue. I mean, this team, because of the bullpen, it feels like that they have so much worse of a record than their expected wins and loss record. I mean, heading into this game, the Rangers had Pythagorean record of 80-46, and their actual record was 72-54. 8 games worse. If the Rangers had just what their Pythagorean record was, they would have an 9-game lead over the Astros. Or would it be 10 games? I don't know at this point, but it's just so incredibly frustrating to watch this team lose close game after close game after close game, because the offense is great. For the most part, it's great. I know that they have some inconsistencies, but so does literally every offense. Even the Braves offense has some games where they get shut out, and they have like 1 through 9 of everybody in their team OPS is somewhere around 875, which is just absolutely insane. And even the Dodgers, who have the two of the best hitters on the planet going 1 and 2, like the Rangers have, well, the best hitter on the planet going number 2, and Marcus Semien, a pretty solid leadoff hitter, and the rest of their lineup definitely has their moments. But like, you can't expect the offense to score literally 10 runs every single game. And the starting pitching is really good. I mean, if your worst starter is Andrew Heaney, and with all my complaints about Andrew Heaney, he is still a really solid number 5 starter, and he's about to lose his spot in the rotation when Nathan Eovaldi comes back. So your worst starter is going to be Dane Dunning, who has a 3.20 ERA on the season, 3.19. Like, this team should not be losing this many close games, but the bullpen is just such a glaring issue, and there were trades to be made there. There were more trades to be made, and it felt like it at the deadline. That's why my first episode after the deadline was, did Chris Young do enough? And it felt like kind of, but you really wanted one more reliever. I mean, he only traded for 2 relievers this year. I mean, he traded for Aroldis Chapman, which, like, is probably the best reliever out there on the market. Like, pretty solid trade, and doing that about a month before the deadline. That was a smart move to get more value out of him because the Rangers' pen was in such a rough way. And then you got Chris Stratton, who has been mostly pretty darn good for this Rangers bullpen. But you kind of knew Will Smith was a little bit of a flash in the pan. You kind of knew that Josh Sborz, you weren't entirely sold on if he is or if he isn't a good reliever. It's been 3 years of it, and we're still... we thought we knew that in the month of May, that, okay, yeah, Josh Sborz is just going to be a good reliever. But like every reliever, there's just so much up and down. That's why you got to go make these trades. I know I said I hate trading for relievers because those are the trades that could come back to bite you in the keister so incredibly badly, as it's looking like this Aroldis Chapman trade could be because of what Cole Reagans is doing in Kansas City. But the Rangers just needed Aroldis Chapman in the worst way. So even if Cole Reagans would have been really good for the Rangers, and it would have been nice to see him get some of the starts as opposed to Martin Perez and Andrew Heaney. But, you know, that's a discussion for another day, and maybe he wouldn't have done what he's doing here, but he was still throwing 99 with the Rangers. He wasn't hitting 101 like he has with Kansas City, but I digress. That is a conversation for another day. You still would have liked to have traded for a reliever, and because they didn't, it might end up costing this team. There are a lot of close games in the playoffs. This team, the things that they don't do well is hold leads late, win close games, and come back in games. And those are the type of games that are in the playoffs. It's easy to sit here and say, well, the Rangers still have a 1-game lead, and they'll have 7 out of the last 10 games against the Mariners, who they've destroyed. They've also got 3 games against the Astros, so they can, cushion themselves a little bit, and they kind of control their own destiny. Well, if you're not winning these close games, and even if you win the AL West, and you do get that number 2 seed, because they're probably not passing the Orioles for the best record in the American League, you're going to have to play a lot of these close games in October. And I know that we have said, like, October's such a crapshoot, but, like, if you're not good at the things that you have to do to win in October, even if you have Bruce Bochy and his magical postseason touch, even if you have all these great players and great starting pitchers and a great, starting lineup and rotation, yada, yada, yada. If you're not winning, if you're not able to do what it takes to win these close games like you have in October, then all of this, whatever 90-plus win season that it ends up being, if the Rangers do win the AOS, you're not going to go deep into the playoffs like this. The Rangers are going to need to really prioritize signing their bullpen in the offseason. It's just so incredibly frustrating to watch this bullpen time and time again waste what should be a much easier stretch down to the end of the regular season, and it should be a team that is winning much more of these close games. But just every single time the Rangers have a nice thing this season, the bullpen just seems to absolutely poop on it, and I am really freaking sick of watching it. But that is enough about this Major League team. We're going to look about a little bit of stuff that's been going on in the minors this week, including our prospect of the week. I guess just mine. I don't know why I say it's like the royal we. But this week's prospect of the week is a guy who I considered last week, and I was like, I don't know. He didn't have enough strikeouts in his 5 shutout innings last week. Well, this week he did 5 shutout innings yet again with 9 strikeouts, just 2 hits, and 0 walks. And I'm talking, of course, about Jose Cornell, the pitcher for the Down East. Well, actually, he was starting with the Down East Wood Ducks. He's wearing a Down East Wood Ducks hat in his baseball reference page, but he did this for the Hickory Crawdads against the Greenville Drive. His last 3 outings have gone, actually his last 4 outings have gone like this. In August, he has got 4 starts. 2 of them were for 7 innings. The last 2 have combined for 10 innings of shutout baseball with 15 strikeouts and 0 walks. That is some incredible stuff from this kid. He is 20 years old and already in high A. Just turned 20 on June 22nd of this year. He was born in 2003, which makes me feel incredibly old, but also a huge testament to this kid, what he is doing. He listed at 6'3", 165 pounds. Jeez, what a string bean. But he is, effective. He's been very effective at Hickory this year, and even when he was at Down East, he has just been very, very good, very consistent. I don't think that his ceiling is, anything like an ace or anything like that, but heck, if the Rangers could develop literally just one guy to be a back-end rotation piece or, God forbid, a mid-rotation starter, like that would be, I would be dancing on the freaking moon, because it's been just so rough at not developing starting pitchers. Jose Cornell is a guy who I think I need to have higher in my preseason top prospect rankings, because he has been nails this season in Down East. He had a 2.70 ERA in 10 games there, and in 10 games for Hickory, he has got a 3.22 ERA, 50 innings, 55 strikeouts. On the year, he's got 10.7 Ks per 9, 2.5 walks per 9, a whip below 1, and those are all kind of the things that I'm looking for in a starting pitcher, a guy who can stay in the zone, get some swings and misses, and since he is 20 years old and already at Hickory, where he is 3.1 years younger than the average pitcher in that league, that is a really, really good sign. And the Rangers need some good signs, because things have just been in such a rough way for them. It's been increasingly frustrating just watching this team. It's having an incredible season. Just things keep going down the toilet. I would really like for this team to stop throwing the season down the toilet and losing 7 straight games. I think that things will end up being okay for this team, but I mean, how can you not watch these last 7 games and think it feels like something is just wrong and broken with this team? Bruce Bochy's at the helm, so it's hard to get too mad about everything and not feel like that this team is going to pull out of it, but like, it's about freaking time. This is one of the last few series of the year where the Rangers are playing against a non-divisional playoff team. I mean, the Rangers have 2 series that are going to be left this year against teams that are still in the playoff hunt that are not in their own division. They have a 4-game series in Toronto against the Blue Jays, who are not in a playoff spot currently, but are just right there. And if the Rangers fall out of the division lead, which might honestly happen by Monday, then those 4 games in Toronto are going to be absolutely massive. But the Rangers have, 7 out of their next, well, I guess not at this point, 6 out of their next 9 against the Twins, and then a 3-game series in Citi Field against the Mets, which the Rangers are really going to need to sweep that one to get things around. Also, one last prospect thing to note on, in the last 7 days, Evan Carter has continued his hot stretch. He has gone hitting 300 with an on-base of 417 and slugging 500, a 917 OPS in his last 7 days. 3 walks to 6 strikeouts, a couple of stolen bases, a triple, and 2 doubles, because that's what Evan Carter does. There's a nice feature in the Dallas Morning News written by, I believe it was Sean McFarland, and Evan Carter said he thinks he's ready for the big leagues right now, which, good on him. I think if the Rangers call him up, he might be okay, but I would still be a little cautious on calling him up. I mean, if the Rangers losing streak hits 10 games, all bets are freaking off. Maybe you call up Evan Carter just for something to go right for this team, because it has been a rough 7-game losing streak, but hopefully tomorrow will be the day that they finally break it out and start to give some hope back to this team. They do still have a lead in the AL West, and that's going to do it for this week's shows. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And don't forget to enjoy, while you can, first place Texas Rangers baseball.